This bill mostly is about long-term structure for our elections. Admittedly, a lot of this is perception. What it does not do, it does not support a premise that there's some kind of fraudulent activity happening in our elections. I know that that's been a popular thing that's been bantered about. That is not accurate. This bill, what it does do is it attempts to disperse both the authority and the oversight of our election systems going into the future. What it does is it creates basically a board of the statewide elected officials. So you're talking the Attorney General, you're talking the Treasurer, the Auditor, the State Auditor, and your Lieutenant Governor and Governor, in addition to the President and the Speaker as the oversight board that will allow us to, allow us to give direction to the elections director. The elections director essentially will function exactly as they currently function right now, just with a little bit different oversight that is dispersed amongst the group.
Can you speak a little bit more to why you're running it? You mentioned this is a structure change. Why do we need this structure? And does this bill specifically take aim at Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson?
Of course not. It's an absurd premise, number one. But I understand why the question is asked, because it is a change from the current scenario. Each election cycle, including with past election directors, they field questions constantly about that perception. In Arizona, we just went through a cycle where the governor was elected from the Secretary of State role in what many have called a questionable election. Whether that's reality or not, I don't know. I'm not an elections auditor. But whether that's reality or not, there's a sizable population in that state that believes that it was a fraudulent election based on that scenario. We just went through that cycle with our own past gubernatorial election in a scenario where the lieutenant governor was elected to be the governor. There is no indication that we had any fraud, any of that. Then, frankly, the elections are run by our counties. We have some of our county officials here with us, right here, that are here on the Hill and working on those issues all the time. That's who really runs our elections in Utah, are our county clerks. Now, the oversight of those and a lot of the training comes from our elections office. That's really their part of the responsibility. This is largely removing that perception from the argument. Past election directors have talked to me about how they spend an inordinate amount of time dealing with conspiracies that aren't accurate about this process. And that's what we want to just put to bed. There's no need for that. We've audited these things. The elections office, the lieutenant governor's office, has done a great job responding to the audits and the recommendations from the legislative auditor. So this is not about saying that they've done a bad job. This is not about any of that. This is about the long-term structure. What should it look like going into the future? Should one person carry that particular burden that frankly belongs to all of us? Right? The speaker and the president there, each of us are elected by however many thousands of people throughout the House. The speaker speaks for us by definition. We have a vested interest in that. Out in the hallway, we were talking about a minute ago about all of the different bills that have come up in the last few years around this topic, which is probably why you're here today, right? We've done a good job, I think, of sorting through those, identifying what needed to be changed, identifying what didn't, and making the relevant changes. So I'm hoping that this will address that perception issue and remove that from further delays and problems. Yeah.
Say that having an elected official oversee elections creates a perception issue. Well, county clerks are elected.
Yeah.
And you're saying they basically run elections.
Mm-hmm.
So why does that work and it doesn't work at the state level?
That's probably the best question. Thank you. Yeah, no. I don't give compliments unless I really mean them, so congratulations, yeah. That's probably the best question, right, consistently, right? The reality is we haven't seen that, and just like we have on the state side versus federal government, very similar, right, in how we operate those here. The states are in charge of the elections here, and then we send back our electors to cast their votes federally when we talk about president, nationwide elections. What we hope in a republic is that those function similarly at the county level. We are most likely to not have issues like that if the control is localized. It's actually better for us if the control is localized. And in a weird example, I'll do a fictitious county of Wendover. Doesn't exist in Utah. But if we had a fictional county, sorry, Nevada, to disparage you, if we had a fictional county of Wendover and there was a really corrupt county clerk, that way it's at least localized to that small county, right? And hopefully then we can deal with it from there with the oversight from the larger office. It doesn't mean that for sure we wouldn't have those issues. And certainly in the future, we could talk about whether or not we would need to address something there
Did you
at the
look
county level.
alternatives to moving the elections office out of the lieutenant governor's office? Others did
Sure.
that, for example, secretaries.
That was the first thing we looked at, yeah.
And why not go that route?
Because it's the same thing under another name. And frankly, we had that before, right? We got rid of it in the 70s. It's the same. We'd literally just be calling it something else. There is a functional difference in that it's not tied to the ticket of the governor. I mean, that's important in that scenario to avoid that perception of the situation. But yeah, that's why we didn't go down that route.
In the 2020 election, then Lieutenant Governor Spencer Cox
Yeah.
stepped away from any election disputes and turned that over to former Lieutenant Governor Gail McKechnie.
For that reason, yeah.
Is this bill sort of saying that creating that sort of stepping away temporarily is not sufficient enough, and you need to create an even larger amount of separation?
I'm saying that
from the political office.
no. What it is saying is recognizing the reality that 90 probably plus percent, if you ran one of your polls, of Utahns have no idea that that happened. You and I do, and that's fine, and that's good, and that was appropriate for him to make that move, and I would expect such a thing to happen. And this is not about any kind of real fraud we've been able to identify at all. The audits were fine, and they implemented the changes we recommended. What this is about is dealing with that perception. As often is said, perception is reality at times, and making sure that going into the future, we are dealing with the things that really are potential problems, have the right oversight in place, and enough eyes, on that decision.
This director position, though,
Yeah.
it gives this person a lot of power who's not elected.
They literally already exist.
Right, in
Yeah.
a state elections director. But,
Yes.
It takes this governing board, right, who presumably in this state will be all Republicans. What is to say that this position couldn't be politicized?
Has nothing to do with what party anyone is. And so any risk that is there now would potentially already exist, only it would be more dispersed, so less likely, I suppose, to be politicized.
Have you talked to the Lieutenant Governor about this?
I called their office when we filed this in November.
Have you gotten
Yes.
feedback from them?
Yes.
What's that feedback been like?
That is not mine to give. I'm sure you can ask them what they
How much
want
of
to
an
say.
appetite is there to pass this session? How much appetite is there among the rest of the body from your sense of it?
Yes. I think there definitely is some appetite to pass this. That said, I do not intend to run the bill.
You're not running the bill?
I'm sorry.
That's correct.
So,
Okay, so,
tell
yeah,
us what
explain
we're
that.
doing here. then.
So why drop it, then not run it? Why make it public? Why put it out there if you're not gonna run it?
Yes. Things change rather quickly here on the Hill. I do not intend to actually hold a hearing on the bill. So we're going to work on this during the interim.
Okay, so what
Why
piece
are we
do you
here?
need need to work on?
You asked for the meeting. I didn't ask for the meeting.
We
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
you explaining
Yes.
that to us rather than us finding it out later.
Yeah.
You'd say you don't intend to actually run it, that you want to work on an interim. What specifically needs work?
What specifically needs work?
Yeah, over interim.
On the topic in general.
So is it just?
So the
like
bill itself exists. The work has been done to create the bill. The negotiations have gone through the process. And the starting point is there.
So
Yes.
it could end up being a Secretary of State, or it could end up reverting back. to
Not
what it is.
likely.
But everything's on the table again. It's not
Yes.
a question of some tweaks that need to be made in the interim. It's really the topic.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys know how this works, right? Like, oftentimes the big stuff takes years, not just sessions. The reality is we are pretty late in the session for a lift this big, with a number of other lifts that we're also running right now. Yeah,
You said that you talked to the Lieutenant Governor.
Sure,
About
yeah.
your proposed legislation.
to her staff,
Oh, to her
yes.
staff, not to
Yes.
her, the Lieutenant Governor herself.
No,
Can you just characterize the reception that was? Are they open to discussing this? Are they open to engaging in further dialogue with you?
we've had
Did they
several
shut it down?
conversations.
Did they say hell no? I mean, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, what was the reception you got?
Yeah, I've had a lot of conversations with different members in that office, and of course with the elections officers and other county clerks and things. And it varies all over the place. So everybody has different ideas. There is recognition of the issue, of the problem that we're trying to solve. And in the last day or so, I've agreed to not run it this year and to work on this through interim together. And I've got commitments on that.
What did you agree with?
With legislative leadership, the governor, et cetera, with everybody.
So did they push back on it?
Different parts, everybody has, everybody has ideas. Some people really want the Secretary of State. Some people, that's the thing too. Like, there's a lot of passion about the topic, as you can tell from the past 3 years of elections bills that have gone through. So, yeah, we've agreed that we would continue that conversation over the interim.
Is it troubling that a lot of the passion about the topic around elections has sprung from baseless claims of election fraud? That's the genesis of all this, is baseless claims of election fraud from Donald Trump and his allies following the 2020 election. Is it troubling that that is where a lot of the energy for this is coming from, or at least the energy surrounding elections?
Not any more troubling than the claims from Hillary Clinton in 2016. So, yeah, everybody likes to say that lately when they lose an election.
I don't remember Hillary Clinton saying that.
You should go look it up.
That she won.
She did it publicly. She accused the other side of fraud at the time.
But did she say that she won the election?
I don't know. You're talking like 8 years ago.
There doesn't seem to be a ton of appetite up here to deal with election issues this session. Is your bill being put on hold, being put back to interim?
Nobody made me put my bill on hold.
Well, you indicated though you got pushback from all
From
sectors.
some.
Yeah.
No, I didn't get
You said
pushback from all
legislative
sectors.
leaders,
Yeah.
You said the governor, you said others.
That was not pushback from all of those people. There were wide opinions on what should happen and how we should solve the problem.
Right, but
Yes.
pushback on dealing with it the way you
Many of them
suggested
want me
this
to do it.
session. Right.
Yeah.
That's what I meant by pushback.
Oh.
Let's not deal with it this session. Let's look at more options over interim. And,
This was an agreement
Yeah.
that this is a big enough change and this has come out late enough
Yeah.
that we should take our time and work on this in the interim.
So my question is that part of an overall strategy up here not to deal with some of these election issues? There's tons of election
This is
bills
only
floating around.
about this
They don't seem to
bill.
be going anywhere.
Yeah, I haven't been a part of the larger whatever you're referring to.
Okay, is there a sense though, as a lawmaker working on an election issue, that
Yeah.
there's not an appetite to deal with that this session?
Maybe from
You got-
some, I'm hearing more from those who want to do it.
There's
probably time for like one more
Why is
question.
the bill 14,000 lines?
Why is the bill 14,000 lines? I suppose you could ask the drafting attorney. because it's not that complicated.
Just because we have to change lieutenant governor to director in
In
every
a
one
lot
of
of
the codes.
places.
May I ask,
Yeah.
what would ideally, I guess, do you have a sense of where you would like to end up ultimately, knowing that you
I like
have to
the bill like it
negotiate? I know, but knowing that you have to negotiate and that you have to, you know,
Yeah.
there may be some issues, there may be even potentially legal
I
challenges.
still think it's smart to go ahead and do it now and just remove that from the conversation if we can. But, yeah, but you know, I'm a team player. Here we go.
Okay, we gotta get you creative.
Okay.